we've promised our reverse ladder predictor, Moons. We started yesterday. I'll keep saying we. We started yesterday with 18, 17, 16. So West Coast, Hawthorn, and North Melbourne were 18, 17, 16. Today, 15, 14, 13. And during the trade period, I did say that this team could, not would, I said could finish last if things went really, really poorly. Now, you can mount that case and say that about a heap of teams.
Yep.
But in 15th, I've got the Richmond Tigers. Last year, 10, 12, and 1. They had a low percentage of 93.6. So, reasons being, most excited to see, sure thing, our hope, our worry, and our game plan adjustment. Most excited to see is Gibcus, for sure, down back. Absolutely excited to see the young man. He had a horror season last year, and I'll tell you what, they've left no stone unturned in trying to get him back to full health and to get him back being able to play footy for the Richmond Footy Club. Now, he was at different stages the answer to their woes in the forward half as well. So Richmond, that is, expecting a lot from Josh Gibcus, and I think he's a great talent. I like him. He's got a little bit of the Harrison Petty about him, but he is a real talent. So hopefully he can get back and be healthy throughout 2024 and beyond. The sure thing for me is they'll win a few games because of Dustin Martin and Shea Bolton. Those two guys will have some games where they have 25 and kick 3, and they'll win the game for the Tigers. How many? I'm not sure, but they'll definitely have a couple of games each where they will be the best player on the ground by that far. It's not funny. The hope for Richmond is Jacob Hopper. Hopefully he can come on after a really interrupted year through injury, but also just a disjointed year. There was a lot of focus on Richmond. There was a lot of focus on he and Taranto. And Taranto held up his end of the bargain. He could do not much more than what he did. Certainly in the first 2/3 of the season, he probably dropped off a little bit, but his form was absolutely outstanding throughout the season. So hopefully Jacob Hopper, because I reckon there's more in him. He's a burst player. He can run away from stoppage. He can carry the footy. So hopefully there's more in and within Jacob Hopper for Tigers fans. And the worry has to be this foot of Tom Lynch's. It has to be the foot of Tom Lynch, because if it's not able to have him out on the park and have him playing it somewhere close to his best, then things can quickly really get worrying for Richmond. I think he's probably the player across the competition that their club is leaning on and relying on the most. I think Tom Lynch is the most important to Richmond, more so than anyone else in the competition. And the X's and O's, for me, Moons, is probably getting Dusty back around the ball. So Cochin goes out. There was probably just too many guys around the footy. And Dusty was the one who could go forward and be damaging. But I reckon they might need him making the game easier for others by using that ball beautifully by foot across the middle part of the ground. So whether he plays, sort of 40 to 100 from goal, that type of thing, he won't need to go back into defence and do much. But I think he might need to get, 15 or so possessions around the middle part of the ground in between the arcs and try and be a score involvements guy more so than a scorer himself on the end of the chain. So that's where I see Richmond. I think they can certainly be down in that bottom part of the ladder. Their ceiling, could they scrape into the finals? Maybe, but unlikely. So that's where I've got Richmond for 2024, Moons. Now, position number 14. A team that, look, I got a few things wrong last year, as we are often reminded, but I was a seller of the Fremantle Football Club stock, and that one proved correctly, because they had a disappointing season last year, make no mistake about it, and I think they'll continue this year to be disappointing again. They were 10 and 13 last season. I don't think they'll win any more than 10. In fact, I think they might win less than 10 games next year. In terms of who I am excited to see, Jai Amos. He's one of few good, clearly talented long-term prospects on their list. He was absolutely outstanding last year with not much support around him. Young Josh Tracy's, he's improving, he's trying, he has a crack, but he's not yet ready to command a key position spot and kick 30 or 40 goals in a season. But Amos kicked 41 goals in his first season of football. We pushed his case as hard as we could for the NAB Rising Star because of what he was doing as a young key forward in an underperforming team. He's got a lot of Jack Gunston about him in terms of the way he roams. He's crafty. He's quite lean. He's not a big guy. He's not going to overpower people, but he's certainly an exciting young man. The sure thing for Fremantle is that their attacking issues and their ball movement will remain an intertwined issue. So the slow movement can be sometimes because of no trust of what's in the forward line, and having a lack of trust can lead to slow movement and frustration all over the field. I was at some games working the Fremantle games earlier in the year, and Cox and Ryan and Clark and Young, they were having 15, 16 marks each. And I'm thinking, imagine playing in the forward line in this team where they're just going sideways, sideways, backwards, sideways. And as a forward, you're running from one side of the ground to the other in case they happen to kick it long. So that is my sure thing. Unless things change drastically, then their ball movement issues will remain. But the hope is that Jordan Clark, that Ryan, that Luke Ryan, that Hayden Young, and a few others can be a bit more creative and be encouraged to be more creative and definitive with the ball off halfback. Optus Stadium in Perth is a massive field. It's massive. So spread the ground, make it big when you've got it, get some handball receives, and put some speed into the game. Because if you can't score, we look at Collingwood and the speed they play with. We look at Brisbane and the potency they've got. If you can't score, you can't win. The worry for them is actually kicking fewer goals than last year, because Amos kicked 41. I mean, how many more can we expect from him? But Schultz has gone. He kicked 33. Walters kicked 33. He's not getting any younger. I know no one is, but he's certainly right toward the end of his career. Frederick, I think, is a tick. He kicked 26. And Luke Jackson probably is a tick as well, because he kicked 22 goals as well. So I'm looking at Josh Tracy. Can he go from, he must improve. He played 17 games last year, only kicked 15 goals. Can he go to 30 goals next year? That needs to be a target for him. And can they find someone from a different position to go forward and provide some cameos? And it's not going to be Nathan Fyfe at his age and at this stage of his career. It's not going to be him, because he can't get on the park enough to do so. So that's the worry for them. From an X's and O's point of view, it's simple. They've just simply got to find more avenues to goal. And I looked and I could only really come up with two things, Cam and Cameron. Maybe it's a big hulking, plonking full forward named Sean Darcy, who stands 12 metres from goal, and you kick it on his head, and he marks 15 a year, and he kicks 15 to 20 goals. Maybe it's that. And maybe Luke Jackson's in the ruck whilst all that happens. Or maybe we love swingmen. Maybe it's Brennan Cox being swung forward. I don't know, because if their defenders can hold up, maybe Brennan Cox can be afforded to be swung forward. But I've got some real concerns about Fremantle. They don't play an exciting brand of footy. And they don't have avenues to goal. And you couple that together, and perhaps we see them win less than the 10 games they won in 2023. Unlucky number 13. We've got the Saners at 13. And that's a big drop-off for a team that, if I'm not mistaken, finished
sixth.
Well, yeah, sorry.
Sixth. Hosted a home final.
They did.
Woo.
Yes. Well, anyway, I've got them in 13th. So 13 and 10 last year. Percentage of a couple of ticks under 108. Now, the player I'm most excited to see, we always try and start with some positivity. Max King. I'm a buyer of all the stock available in Max and Benjamin King. But from Max's perspective, I was having a look at his numbers last night. He had a good season last year off that bad shoulder injury. So it was his greatest return in terms of goals per game, 2.54 goals per game last season off that shoulder injury. So he's now got 71 games under his belt, 4 seasons in the books, 4 off seasons in the books. Hopefully that body and that lower body is getting strong. Those injury issues can be behind him. He's had a few. That's a worry. But at 23, he's certainly primed to be one of the better or one of the best key forwards in the competition. He has a skill that I don't think, when he's able to execute that skill, jumping up and reaching for a high ball, I don't think there's anyone in the competition who can go with him in a situation like that. What he needs to do, and I watched him closely 1v1 against Stephen May at the MCG last year. Stephen May just took his body so early before he even knew what was going on, and he was unable to jump at the ball, and he was unable to get up and jump up off 2 feet. So he'll need to get better at that. He'll need to go to school on those stronger, more seasoned defenders who want to take that away from him. But he is an absolute talent. I love what he does. And I hope that now with 71 games under his belt, with 4 seasons in the books, that the goal-kicking stuff starts to become really – he can become confident in his goal-kicking, and he can become really reliant in terms of what he can do in front of goal, because certainly at different stages across the past couple of years, it's been hard work for him to kick goal after goal after goal. Now, maybe he'll never be an 80% goal kicker, but not many are. But hopefully he can be around that 65, that league average, somewhere around that 60 to 65 in terms of his accuracy. So I'm excited to see what he can do as he enters the prime of his career. The sure thing is that Mitch Owens continues to be one of already the best 1v1 players in the competition away from stoppage. His contested possession numbers and his contested possession winning rate was as good as anyone away from a stoppage. So, high balls that are kicked to him 1v1, balls that are kicked in his area along the ground, loose ball gets, they're all contested possessions. He is a phenomenal young player. Now, I think we can leave the backup ruck stuff alone. I don't like to see him in there against the big 6'8" ruckman. But last year he would play on ball at different stages, and Rowan Marshall would bolt forward and he would take the ruck. He would be the backup ruck at different stages. He'd be that hybrid tall forward. He can do everything. So I can't wait to see what he does next year. But what he will be is a super reliable contest winner ahead of the footy for the Saints. My hope is that Jack Hayes gets a look at it, because I think, Moons, he has got what it takes to be the real prototype second ruck / key forward, because in only 6 games, he's already got career bests of 18 disposals, 3 goals, 10 marks, and 4 tackles. Now, they're personal best, but I reckon after most young key forwards / rucks first 6 games, their PBs were about 10 disposals, maybe 2 goals, maybe 5 or 6 marks. He's already shown he can do a little bit of everything. So I like what he can do, and he also allows Owens to not have to go into the ruck, as well as allowing Marshall to go forward. The worry is Jack Steele. He looked right off the pace last year. Again, I worked on a heap of Saints games, watched him pretty closely. He looked like he was really off the pace at different stages in 2023. Got tackled a lot, wasn't able to complete the tackles that we've seen him and we've loved him for over the past few years. And the X's and O's structurally, Marshall 80% ruck, Hayes 20% ruck and 60% forward, and King is the number 1 key forward. Get that right, and maybe the Saints will outperform what I think.
In 12th, the Western Bulldogs.
Oh, God.
The Western Bulldogs. There it is. The Suns. 12 and 11 last year, so a winning record, a winning season, as they say in the States. My most excited to see next year. I'm excited to see Aaron Norton and Jamara Ugle-Hagan hopefully become the number 1 key forward duo in the competition. Too often last year and years previous, Aaron Norton's looked quite sore. Now, he plays the game
on this. That's good. I like
he
that.
plays the game in a manner that is quite combative, but he does look sore. He's always strapped up. He's always bandaged up. He's always coming off with an issue. So I don't know what he can do about that. But what it does do is lead me to be a little concerned about the longevity of his prime. He's kicked 47-40, 51-34, and then 44-33 across the past 3 seasons. Can he improve the accuracy by 6 or 7%? It's not a lot. Can you kick 4 or 5 more set shots? And then can you kick a couple more in general play? And on the other side of things, his partner in crime, Jamara Ugle-Hagan, he's an emerging force. He can do a little bit of everything. He can put some pressure on. He has gone from, and I think they've handled him really well. Well, I think people were critical of the way, just play him, just give him a chance, but they were teaching him, they were making him learn the game and all facets of the game too. When you don't have the ball, what can you do? When you have got the ball, who can you make better? Can you compete more? So I love what they've done with him, and you've got to give them credit for that. But speaking of inaccuracy, Norton's the one who cops all the criticism for inaccuracy. Jamara kicked 35 goals, 35 last year.
50, yep.
And the year before kicked 18 goals, 16. So he's got more of an issue with accuracy than Norton, yet all we hear about is Norton. I think because his technique is a little sketchy.
Yeah.
That's why we hear about it. Now, normally I'd roll along, but your views on Aaron Norton?
So I think with Aaron Norton, I like that you said that it is crash and bash, and I think he's arguably the best contested mark in the game from a forwards point of view, like running and jumping into a pack the way that he does.
Fearless.
It's fearless. It's outstanding to watch. It's something that I couldn't do. Just
beautiful.
His hands were just unbelievable, but he doesn't get enough easy ball.
Yeah.
So we were talking off air about, leading patterns and your first 5 steps, getting away from your opponent and just getting easy marks, uncontested marks. I want to see him get more uncontested marks. Yes, it's great that he takes 3 to 4 contested marks, and we love that. But he's only getting 5 or 6 marks a game. I want to see him get to 8 to 10 marks a game and only have 2 contested marks. So he's getting easier ball, so he's not crashing and bashing the whole time. And I think that'll be a hell of a lot better for him. And as you know, when you do go back and you've just taken this big mark and you've hit the ground, you saw, then you got to line up, you do miss.
Yeah.
You do. That all adds in. But if you've just taken a nice mark on the chest and lead up, you can turn, get your breath back, line it up, take your time.
Yep. My sure thing for the Dogs this year is about a half a dozen times they'll look like world beaters. They'll look like one of the best teams in the competition because they'll go on the road and they'll beat a top 4 team. They'll roll up to a big blockbuster clash on a Friday night and they'll dominate from wire to wire because they do have an amazing blend of top-end talent. They've got probably the best midfielder in the competition. They've got the reigning All-Australian ruckman. They've got a really potent 1-2 punch with their key forwards. They've got Libba, who's one of the best clearance players in the game. They've got hard runners on the outside. They've got ball users off half-back. Most of them have been All-Australians at different stages or are reigning All-Australians. But for how long and how consistently will they look like that team? And the hope for me, is that probably the depth players need to rise to the fore because I'm not sure, and I'm going to throw it out to Dogs fans, 1300 736 736. Who are the depth players that can improve and can make this team better? Because we saw Collingwood improve. Now, of course, Collingwood improved because their stars played well. But they brought in Lipinski, a former Dog, who made them better. They had Isaac Quaynor go from a good average player who got a game every week to an All-Australian calibre player. They had McStay who was identified and come in and help them. So who improves the Dogs from outside of that list of stars? Dogs fans, let us know. 0433 98 11 16 or jump on the phone and let us know who will improve the Dogs from that group of core depth players. The worry for the Dogs is, I guess, a persistency or a continual run of just inexplicable losses. Last year, they had some losses that you thought, how is this happening? So everyone looks to the round 23 loss against West Coast at Marvel. But the week previous, they went to Tasmania and lost to Hawthorn. Now, I'm not condemning them for that, but I think at that point in the season, it's round 22, you go to Tassie, you lose the game, you think, geez, that one got away from us.
Yep.
And we don't have much wriggle room left. We have to go home and beat West Coast the following week, but they couldn't do that either. And at the end of the day, it cost them a spot in the finals. So they lost to the Giants in Ballarat. They lost to Port at Marvel. They coughed up a game in the NT to Gold Coast. And they started the season with back-to-back 50-point losses to Melbourne and the Saints. Now, in isolation, none of those losses you're not gonna hang them for.
No.
But I guess it's a consistency of habit in terms of losing those games. So they've got to find a way to go, 50-50 in those types of games. And the X's and O's, they need to work out. They've got land of the Giants, and they just need to work out who's who in the zoo, who fits where, who's going to play. Back him in. What happens with Rory Lobb? Where does he fit in? They've got emerging types like James O'Donnell. They've got young Darcy. They've got Croft, who's going to be in the mix. So they've just got to work out the land of the Giants. fit them all in, lock them all down, and allow them to grow together, because it can be a great strength for them, but they just don't know where to play some of these guys at the moment.
I would love to see what they've done pre-season from a forward line point of view, how they've worked, what they've been talking to each other about, how they've worked things out. Because if you have a look at Norton, Ugle-Hagan, Waitman, and then Lobb, that's a pretty good four.
Oh, it's a great four.
That's a really good four. But again, I think it was a bit like when we used to play against St Kilda and Nick Rewalt and Cozzy. They used to jump into each other a lot, which from a defender's point of view, that's what you want.
They're spoiling each other.
Yeah, we as forwards, we want isolation. So, and I found a little bit with Norton and Lobb, they're jumping into each other and try and work out as much isolation as you can. You've got good ground ball players to kick goals as well, particularly with Waitman. And it's funny, I said during the year, I think on paper they've always looked one of the best teams in the competition, but they do let you down. And I copped a fair bit of heat from Doggy supporters, and thankfully they went and lost the next 2 games. But that always helps when you throw something out there, Josh. But yeah, I just think on paper they look fantastic. I think Liam Jones down back, now he was up and down a little bit because I think of injury, he's in and out, but he does shore them up down there. I still think they still have the ability to give up too many marks inside 50 and goals. So that's something they need to work on. But for mine, it is the forward line. I think they get enough ball through the midfield, clearly. They've got one of the best midfielders in the competition. But can they kick winning scores?
Now let's continue our reverse ladder predictor. So just to recap, there was a text earlier about just recapping the ladder so far. If you've missed it, 18th was the West Coast Eagles, 17 Hawthorn, 16 the Kangas, 15 Richmond, 14 Fremantle, 13 St Kilda, 12 Western Bulldogs, and 11 at position number 11, and this is a fall from grace. It's only an opinion. Just calm down. They went 16-7 last year with a percentage of 125.2, but they went out in straight sets.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag, it's the emblem.
The D's, and our intrepid producer just continues to shake the head. But the D's. Now, the reason I've got them in 11th, Moons, is I don't think there's going to be any middle ground for them. So everything that's happened and swirled around them, I think it'll either galvanise and rally the troops, or it may break them apart and they'll finish where they are. That's why I've got them in 11th. So most excited to see for me is the response, whether it's good or whether it's bad. I'm just keen to see what the response is after a summer of drama. Now, you can say, the things around Simon Goodwin were just noise, and you can say this and that about certain other things, but, we know about Clayton Oliver's situation. We'll park that to the side for obvious reasons. We know about the Joel Smith situation, but there's been noise all over the place. For a
couple of years.
And for a long time. Yeah. And that drains energy. Yep. It drains energy. Leadership meetings, extra time with coaches and staff members and your CEO and your head of footy and all these different things. So I'm keen to see what the response will be and what the experienced D's can do about it after a season or so not from hell, but next to it. So the sure thing for me will be, I know how Max Gawn will handle it. I'm pretty sure he'll be one of the best ruckmen in the competition last year. Brodie Grundy's gone. I think he'll still carry a bit of that, the chip of it didn't work, and he thinks that he was a part of the reason it didn't work. But what happened was when Grundy went out of the side, he was back to being
the
superstar that he is. I think he'll do what needs to be done. So he's a sure thing. The hope is anyone bobs up to be a proven goal kicker for them. Shane McAdam knows where the goals are, but he played as much SANFL footy as he did AFL footy last year. Aside from the two or the big guys down there, so Jacob Van Rooyen is still emerging.
Still
and
a pup.
His ceiling is, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
They plan on playing Harrison Petty forward. Now, for me, the jury's out there. He
had a very good month.
He had a great month.
And we all were very excited, and we should have been, but
you need to see more.
A month is a hell of a lot different than 12 months.
Particularly when he probably catches a lot of teams in that month, or most teams in that month, by surprise, right? He's not really planned for. There's not a lot of vision to look at. Now, some of the key defenders that I've played with, they spend a lot of time watching behind the goals their opponent. Yeah. It's one of the rare positions on the field where it's still a lot of 1v1 and you want to see what the other person is like. So he'll be planned for all summer. So that's going to be fascinating to see how he goes. Cozzy Pickett's a great pressure/creative forward, but I know he's had a season where he's kicked 40.
Yep.
I think he went north of 40 in the premiership season.
Yeah, 37 last year.
Stand corrected on that. But so he'll have to probably kick that many for them to do well in the forward half of the ground. Fritsch, we know, is a proven goal kicker. He's probably just dropped off a little bit from their premiership year or so. So the goals are going to be fascinating. Tom McDonald has apparently gone back to defence. So it's an absolute work in progress for them. The worry is that the avenue remains dry and they don't find that person or those people needed to kick their goals. Jake Melksham's gone with the ACL. Joel Smith, we know, is gone. So how do they get, if you put their best 23 on paper now, where do you get 14 goals from to win a game of footy? That's I think, if you do it like that, if you put their best 23 on paper, how can you come up with 14 goals from week to week, or the best part of 14 goals from week to win games? And the X's and O's, I reckon they've spent a lot of the summer working on the connection, the money kick, as they call it, Moons. That connection, that last kick going inside 50, because they know, they're not silly, they know they aren't blessed with talent and goal-kicking avenues. So therefore, each ball that goes inside 50 probably needs to have the absolute amount of care on it so that they are making the job of the forwards a lot easier. So you can do drills endlessly in the summer, but it's under pressure. We learn whether they've improved the connection from the kicker to the receiver inside 50 and that ball retention inside 50. So D's fans, let us know. I know it'll probably be alarming or upsetting to a few. 1300 736 736. Are you with me and you're thinking the D's might slide, or are you bullish and think they can respond and get close or win a premiership? Because that is the aim for them.
So I've said for a long time now that I think this group should walk away with a couple of premierships. They have been that talented, but their last couple of years have just haven't been what we thought they were going to be. And as you said, going out in straight sets again wasn't the great thing. But you look at their midfield. I mean, Petrarca, Viney and Brayshaw, Hunter, and Oliver's going to be the big question mark for them. As you said, we'll park that to the side at the moment. So they've got that covered through the midfield. They've got a back line that's extremely strong, great one-on-one players, intercept players. But I'm with you. I look at their goal kicking and I look at Fritsch, Pickett and Petrarca, and if they're leading your goal kicking, that's a huge concern for me. So Van Ryan, a young kid, he's not going to be ready just yet to be a number one key forward for a season. Like, people don't understand. It's a really tough gig to be the number one and lead that forward line, take control, and all of those type of things. Harrison Petty, what we saw in a small glimpse, I'm bloody excited. But I tell you right now how hard it is to do it for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And as you said, now all of a sudden everyone knows, okay, Harrison Petty's the man. Let's just check him out. Let's see everything that he does. Yep. All the behind the goals vision now that players have. They've got so much to work with that you can pick apart an opponent.
Yeah,
to the nth degree now.
Yeah.
So that's pressure's going to be on him. So can he handle that?
Gets the number one defender away.
Straight away you look at, can Melbourne kick a winning score? And I look at their midfield, I go tick. I look at their defenders, I look tick. I look at the forward line can they kick a winning score of 15, 16, 17, 18 goals? I have a question mark.
I thought it got that desperate. We'll get to the news. I thought it got that desperate late last year, even in the finals, where I was thinking, is Stephen May a viable option to go forward? Because that's how desperate it became. It was just...
Well, McDonald has now moved down back because his career after the grand final, which I thought he had a really good grand final year.
Yeah,
premiership
super.
Year. Super. And I've always said he's been the missing link because they've needed a guy... Talk about the link. They needed a link-up player. They needed a workhorse. He was that. He was that to a T, but his body let him down.
Yeah.
So now they're talking now that we're throwing him down back again. So who's going to be that guy? Is it Van Ruin and Petty? It's still a question mark for mine.